a very special review with the new Audi Q8 e-tron with a comparison of the SQ8 Sportback e-tron. Here with Thomas on Autogefühl for you in 4K, full screen and full length. Let's go! Where does it come from? How does it sit in between the competition? Tesla Model X, Mercedes EQE SUV or the BMW iX. Let's take a look here at the front. And that's one of the things they have majorly changed. Exterior changes, technology changes later on. Here we can see the mask here around and then the single frame grille inside. Before it was the Audi e-tron, their first electric big SUV, and now they say, hey, we have made so many e-tron models, we have to position it in the model portfolio. That's why it's now called Audi Q8 e-tron. To see, this is approximately the size also of the petrol version. From the inside color here, this is a special edition where you have the inside color with the matching exterior color here in Chronos Gray, but you can also get it in different colors, for example, blacked out in the black package as well, and also the frame is in different versions available. In the SQ8 it would be bright, for example. And the new design feature is also here, two-dimensional Audi rings. They take away the three-dimensional chrome look, they say mainly for design reasons, to make it more modern, up-to-date. What do you think about it? Tell me in the comments. And then they have two versions. The background is always black, but then here this is like a gray ring, but you can also get it in the brighter styling. It looks very clean. However, I was also a fan of the real things you could touch, you know. So far in this segment here, it wasn't the most efficient vehicle overall. They have now improved that, for example, by increasing the aerodynamic efficiency. So now CD values of 0.24 or 0.26, depending on the Sportback or the SUV version. The Sportback is always better. Then here in the lower part, they also optimize the air breathers, or these air curtains. So the air goes in here, goes through the wheel arch. This has been optimized. And also how the wind is flowing in the underbody of the vehicle. Here at the inside of the grille, this one opens on demand, actually just when cooling is needed. Another efficiency measure. Styling-wise, by the way, here this lower part is more accentuated in the S-line, which we have right here, or than in the SQ8. Otherwise, in the base advanced line, it's a little bit smaller. And only from below you can see the wheel spoilers, and they are actually one of the best efficiency gains. Very interesting, right? Because they channel the air from here to the side away from the wheels, and that is bringing a lot of gains in efficiency. And have you actually seen this new detail? This light strip above the Audi rings? Right there. There we go. This looks really amazing, right? It's an option. And when you take a closer look right here, this is not the light strip. It is where it is mirrored in the paint. And it originates below. And that's the reason why it's legal, also in Europe. 4.92 meters or 194 inches is the length of the Q8 e-tron, and wheels come from 19 to 22 inch wheels. These ones here are 21 inch, also in an aerodynamic design, then here blacked out. Wheel arches are always painted either in vehicle color or in a contrasting dark gray tone. So they have also optimized the styling here, and also the model name is always indicated now here at the B pillar. Other than that, you have the base SUV shape or then the Sportback shape, and both versions, SUV or Sportback, are available then in different powertrain versions with different power output. What have they done with the batteries? Massive upgrade. The so far biggest battery has been increased and is now the small entry battery. And the bigger battery now is a completely new, even larger battery. So now you either get 89 kilowatt hours net for the 50 model, or for the 55 model and the SQ8 you get 106 kilowatt hours net. So that's an increase by 25 or 20 kilowatt hours depending on the battery. So massive increase. So you get plus 100 kilometers or plus 60 miles of range with this upgrade now. And what does that mean for the real-world driving range? We'll test this vehicle thoroughly throughout the next days, and then at the end of the driving part, we'll tell you about the final test consumption and then tell you about more about the real-world range, but it's way better than before, that's clear for sure already right now. Rear design here, light strip goes all the way through, modern tailored design. And then the lower part here in a contrasting style, this diffuser in the lower part is here more accentuated. And this is always the case in the S-Line or in the SQ8. Driving dynamics wise, also massive changes. Reworked suspension, air suspension is standard, but the front axle is, a little bit stiffer from the setup especially. And then you can get, on top of the normal air suspension, a sportier air suspension setup that is standard for the SQ8 or then also for the S-Line. For the S-Line you can then again depick it, but not for the SQ8. Yes, this is the channel here where you know more details even before you go to the dealer. And recharging, the small battery, 150 kilowatt peak, 28 minutes, 10 to 80% state of charge. And the bigger battery, 170 kilowatt peak and 31 minutes from 10 to 80% state of charge. And that is indeed very good as for the improvement because the batteries have become larger. So the time didn't really change that much, but since the batteries are so much larger now, this is also a significant improvement. Here, when you press this button, the charging flap opens, and there you have AC and then DC charging below. And here for the passenger side, you can also get another optional AC charger. A really cool solution. Also, the flap is opening, closing, very premium-alike. And a feature you would usually see, for example, where do we know it from? Yes, for example, from Rolls-Royce. Here, inside the wheel, the caps here, they can be turned, actually, and yeah, you can maybe show it off to your friends and do like a Ferris wheel or something here. That looks also quite cool, right? But the function, of course, is that it stays upright even while driving. Let's take a look at that. And turning indicators, cascading style here, that looks always really fancy, doesn't it? And you also get the cascading turning indicator style for the front, at least when you ordered the most expensive headlamps. And acceleration figures, 6 seconds for the so-called 50 model, the Q8 e-tron 50. Then this one here, the 55, is 5.6 seconds, a little bit quicker. Both have 2 electric motors, one in the front, one in the rear. And then the SQ8, that one at 4.5 seconds with 3 electric motors, one in the front, 2 in the rear, and then also enables even better torque vectoring. These here, the all-wheel drive models, do torque vectoring by brake intervention. The SQ8 can do torque vectoring by one motor at the wheel, even just spinning quicker. That's of course a better form of torque vectoring. And now, look at that scenery here. The first scenery was amazing already. And that one, that's just beautiful. And also with beautiful color. This one is now ultra blue, a typical Thomas blue we call it here on our channel because this is my favorite color. These light blue colors. This one in here is now the SQ8 e-tron and also the Sportback version. Once again, you can get an SQ8, the sporty version, for both the normal SUV version and the Sportback. So it doesn't really matter. You can freely pick SUV or Sportback and SQ8 or normal Q8. Here, then the SQ8, you can see, standardly comes with the bright mask around here in this light gray. That looks really beautiful, and I would actually pick it in this very combination. I think also the ultra blue together with the bright accentuation right here just looks amazing. Also the bright inside grille in here. However, you could also go for an SQ8 and make the mask and even the grille in black if you prefer that more sinister look. And I also think it's a right choice here to go for the Audi rings, which are in white here. Always black background, but white then on top. It just looks more present. And I've seen some other vehicles, for example, in my back mirror yesterday or when they were facing towards me. And when the Audi rings themselves are dark, it almost appears as they would be like diminishing. So you can't really see them. And that way you can still see, hey, I'm driving an Audi. Styling-wise, S-Line and SQ8 are similar right here with these wider openings for the air curtains. Otherwise, they are just like this in the size. But then exclusively to the SQ8, you get wider tires. And then they also have to make the wheel arches wider, like here, this bit. But then again, they have some aerodynamic function right here so the air can flow through. Now in the side profile, also 21-inch wheels, but different styling. And here we also have the Sportback version to show you. Falling roof line, really sensual, also with stronger hip area. Would you actually go for the standard SUV version, or would you rather pick the Sportback? Which one do you prefer styling-wise? Tell me in the comments. Then air suspension is here always set on the sportier note, but you also get it, as I said earlier, with the S-line trim. And then you can depick it, but you cannot depick the sporty setup for the air suspension here in the SQ8. However, it is still an SQ8 and not an RSQ8, so they still have some compromise between sportiness and comfort. There's no RSQ8 for the electric version. You have to go then, once again, for the petrol engine still. But here I think this combination works very well. Usually I'm more a fan of the normal SUV versions, but in this case here, yeah, I think the Sportback just has this sportier touch. But is it any bad? Is it a bad compromise? As for the interior, rear and trunk and so on, we'll find out later in the interior part. And in the rear, once again, a stronger presence for the Sportback version, especially in that 3/4 rear perspective right there. Cool look, isn't it? And then the SQ8 version has the silver contrast right here. I think that works very well with stamped in e-tron badging here. The lower part, this diffuser, is the same in the S-Line and also in the SQ8. So also from the rear, is it more the SUV style or Sportback for you? Tell me in the comments. The wide Audi rings, I think once again, work just better. They have more presence here also at the rear. And although they have this two-dimensional look, they are three-dimensional in a way and to be touched at the rear. What about this badging? They have indeed also changed the badging. On the right side, there's now never anything. 50, 55 model, you can't see anything right there. But on the left side, a normal Q8 e-tron, standard one, would have this badge, just Q8. If you pick the S-Line for the Q8, it would be like this, the red Audi Sport logo with the Q8. And then if you have the SQ8, it looks exactly like this. Then door closing sound, really solid. Love that perfect door closing sound. And the interior materials here, soft touch on the top part, a nice microfiber insert here in the S-Line. This is also softer for your elbow, but could be a little bit softer, I think. And the lower part, this was better recently in the Tesla Model X, where this was also covered. Here is just, like a hard pack material. And then here, look at that. These are the digital mirrors. They are an option, and they cannot be bought in the US. And that's actually a good thing, because I think they're a bad idea. Yeah, everyone. They're placed too low in the vehicle. They should be higher and more central towards the driver. Seating position, the seat ergonomics actually is pretty good. Here, 1.89 m or 6'2", still leaves a lot of headroom. A panoramic roof is also available. Steering here, in this case with perforations at the side. S-Line, also red contrast stitches on the inside. And this volume jog here, for example, real buttons at the steering wheel. I love the interior setup here, is really clean indeed. You have this integrated screen, 10.1 inch, the other one 8.6 inch below, and they can also play together in a way. e-tron badging right there, this very interesting structure on top of that. And then you have digital instruments as well, Audi virtual cockpit, and also how everything is processed. The build quality is really very nice. It has been more or less the same setup from the beginning, and we also know it like from Audi A6 and the Audi A7, A8 and so on. Digital instruments, clear to read, I really love them, and the map can be here full screen. However, the thing is, it's only the map from the car internal GPS, and you cannot get Apple Maps or Google Maps in there or something. And the head-up display is always a great little helper. Special to the Q8 e-tron interior is here the shifting reverse and drive. It works, but you have to question yourself, why? Why not make it classic? And this flying middle console here, meanwhile here this part in between is a little bit narrow for big modern smartphones, at least when you use this cable connection here. Underneath you have cup holders that can also be pushed inward, and you have more space to have a power supply. To me, too much clutter actually. And on the left part here, this is then the inductive charging pad, like on this side. Well, here this armrest is very well attached. You cannot move it left or right. And then another place for your smartphone could be down there then. I really like the infotainment system because it has this simple main menu, and the lower screen is my favorite capacitive AC unit. You know, I always prefer real buttons, but for a screen solution it's relatively easy to handle, like with clicking or sliding, and it's large so you can't miss the things. And for example, when you want to adjust here like left and right, you do like the swiping closing gesture, and then you have everything synchronized. Seat heating is, for example, here in the lower part. So this to me, for a screen solution, a good one. This is the drive selector that you can change the driving modes. That is not placed that well. It should be different, or maybe at the steering wheel or something. And once again, what I mean with the digital mirrors, usually you look here for the side mirrors, the normal ones. But here now you look down and it's always distracting. You lose attention from the road. So if you use screens for this solution, they rather should be put up right here. You know what I mean? Very nice comfort indeed. Enough headroom with 189 or 6'2", and also enough legroom. Good package and also decent comfort while seating. And you fold down this, and then you have, for example, cup holders. They are also adaptive, like this. And then in the lower part here, it's a very nice climate unit, and listen to that. With nice clicking sounds, although this is also like this capacitive area. But here for the trunk or the boot, here the normal length is like 1.7 meters or 42 inches. And the width here is, well, between the wheel arches here even, yeah, that's even quite good. Once again, 1.7 meters or 42 inches, so good measurements. And also here in height, this is like 71 centimeters or 28 inches. Capacity is 530 liters for the Sportback, 570 liters, a little bit more here for the SUV. Cool thing is that here, when you lift this one up, you have even more space, once again, for charging cables or replacement tire. And you can also easily fold the seats from here for the maximum length, which is then here at over 1.80 meters or 72 inches. German electric vehicles tend not to have a trunk, but this one does offer one. For example, in here, space for the charging cables. Why not? That's actually decent. And I wonder why other competitors like the BMW iX or the Mercedes EQE SUV don't have one. I don't know. Then does this one here, since we are in front of the hood here, affect the petrol engines in any way? This one here, the Audi Q8 e-tron, is the EV version. Once again, an SUV or Sportback, then different powertrain outputs and so on. But it does not affect the petrol range. The normal Q8, SQ8, RSQ8, this will remain the same. They do have something in common, technology parts and so on, but it will run parallel the EV lineup and the combustion engine lineup. Sportback interior now in the rear. What is the difference? Headroom wise, I had like in the normal SUV version, like this space above my head still. And here, I do fit in here, but then I can just put a hand over my head. So yes, you lose headroom here in the Sportback version in the rear. However, tall adults can still sit here without problem, so it's not a big compromise, only if you have Michael Jordan guests in here in the rear. By the way, about the front, Sportback SUV, no difference in the interior, and also SQ8 with the normal Q8, also basically no difference in the interior. What about the trunk of the Sportback version? Opens really high as well. I can stand underneath it, no problem. And you have the same great access to the trunk. Here, this one is fixed. You can remove it here, however, completely if you like. And you see, it's very usable too. The thing is, you're not limited in height right here, just limited a little bit in height right here. So only if you have long things, but at the same time are super high in the back area, then it would be a problem. Otherwise, I think you can live with this compromise, can't you? Welcome everyone. Let's accelerate. But that was 0 to 100 kilometers an hour or 60 miles an hour with the 55 model. So the official figure is 5.6 seconds. We got to check the time code below. Reasonably quick. 2 electric motors, one in the front, one in the rear. And wow, we have a beautiful scenery on the island of Lanzarote. Wow, this is really impressive. And let's start with the strength of this model. And one of them is definitely noise insulation. It's really silent as for the wind noises around. And one of the weaknesses is, especially at lower speeds, you tend to get some low frequency sounds, especially when you're running over some bumps and so on. And they haven't changed that with the facelift here of the model. So that is on the con side. And the thing is that you especially hear them because it's otherwise so silent. You know, you won't hear them when you listen to music or something, or when you drive faster. But when you drive at slower speeds, then they come quite apparent. One of my favorite strengths of this vehicle is the steering. So here, left and right, it's super precise. And they have also updated it in this very facelift or update, because they have made the front axle, let's say, in a more reacting, stiffer way, and also changed the steering ratio. So you have to steer less, and Audi steerings in general are already quite progressive. But here then they are even more progressive. So small commands are directly transported to the road. At the same time, also when you're driving straight, it is a very relaxing thing, definitely. So you can both drive comfortably in parking in and out, and also in a very sporty way. I like when there's no dead zone area here, and the car is really reacting very precisely. They've also updated the air suspension, and this vehicle we're driving at the moment basically has the suspension setup from the air suspension of the SQ8. That means you can either get this base air suspension or pick the sporty version of the air suspension. And in that case, especially the front axle gets a stiffer setup once again. And we feel that when turning in, that feels even sportier than before. However, I have to say, when you now think about, would I need to change my Audi e-tron to the Q8 e-tron because of the suspension and driving dynamics? No, you'll be just fine. The main reason to switch to the new model is indeed the increased battery size. So as for the driving dynamics, it was great before. Now it is also awesome. So great driving dynamics always with this vehicle, no doubt. When we think about the Tesla Model X, here we feel that the suspension is a little bit better in the Audi Q8 e-tron than in the Tesla Model X. And also in the X we had 22-inch wheels, and these also reduce the comfort while driving. So Tesla Model X with 20-inch wheels would also be better. Also, the steering input here is so precise and so much fun to steer it around. This one here is really, really good in the Audi. And also if you think about the BMW iX or the Mercedes EQE SUV or EQS SUV, the Audi offers the best natural steering input. So I feel that it's most fun to steer the Audi. So this combination of steering and suspension is just awesome here. Probably one of the best things about this vehicle. Then about the efficiency, that's still the thing. So our results so far already is saying that even though some things have improved, it will not be the most efficient car overall. What will it be at the end of the day? We will find out when we drive even further. But now let's compare, how does the SQ8 drive in comparison to this one here. Now the SQ8. Woo! And 100. Whoa. Whew. Okay. That's a notable difference. Whew, yeah. So 2 electric motors now in the back, and although on paper it's just this, like 1.5 seconds difference that you save approximately, even less. The difference was 5.6 versus 4.5 then here now. So barely a second difference, but it feels way quicker indeed. So get an instant push definitely from the get-go. So this additional electric motor really helps a lot. Interesting is that suspension-wise, from the setup, when you get the normal Q8 e-tron with the sportier air suspension in the S-line, and then also stick with it, it has the same suspension setup here than standard with the SQ8. So that's also then this stiffer setup here, and we have more precise steering, because especially the front axle has been stiffened up. but there's still a driving difference, and that is resulting from A, wider tires here in the SQ8, and B, here in the SQ8 we also have the dual motor setup here in the rear, so a triple motor setup in general, and that enables a better torque vectoring. So here we have an active torque vectoring, and this active torque vectoring can actually turn one wheel. For example, here when I'm going now in the left corner and I'm accelerating, then the right wheel on the outside here, the back wheel on the outside, can get more power and kind of push the car into the corner. But the other models, when you have just two electric motors, so one in the front, one in the rear, this is done by brake intervention, and has been the same recently shown with the Tesla Model X Plaid model, that also then gets the additional motor in the rear, and then you also have active torque vectoring. So that's the main difference. So the SQ8 will still feel sportier, and once again, the best thing about these vehicles is the steering is just so direct, it's awesome, you know. Well, and range efficiency gain and so on, this will be super exciting. We did one test with the normal Q8 e-tron yesterday, the 55 model, and we'll also do range test and here today with the SQ8 for a longer period of time, and then compare these both consumption figures, and then we can tailor the real world range. And if they can keep up to the competition, this is to come then later on. Putting it one more time here in dynamic mode, because I'm getting off the motorway here. Noise insulation, like wind noise and so on, is awesome. Really, really awesome. That's great. And wow, here now off the motorway in that bend. It handles so well. So much fun indeed. And I mean, look at that. It's so effortless. It's a heavy vehicle indeed, but the drive, suspension-wise and so on, makes it still so much fun. Of course, at one point, you can't deny physics. So even though the weight is put in the lower part of the vehicle, when you have really, really tight corners, at some point it does push you out of the corners. That's just physics. So electric vehicles are a lot of fun to drive, yes, and they especially feel effortless when accelerating. But when you have lightweight sports cars, you know, then, or in general, like a combustion engine SUV, which is like maybe like 400, 500 kilograms lighter, they do feel better in tight corners indeed, because the weight, again, you just can't deny it. Would I actually choose the SQ8 over the normal Q8 e-tron? Of course, there's always a hefty extra price. I do feel that the SQ8 is a little bit more fun, yes. So this torque vectoring helps, and also the wider tires, they do make a difference. So it is actually more difference than I have expected. And in general, the thing is with the electric vehicles, when you pick between the different horsepower tunes, the difference is not as large as it used to be with combustion engine vehicles. You know, like when you compare like a normal Q8 to an SQ8 or so on. We have felt the same with the BMW iX and to the M60 version. Yes, it is more driving fun, it is more extreme in a way, it goes more into the sporty direction, but the differences are not as large as they used to be. So when you're thinking about a clever budget decision, then it is of course not the SQ8, and you will be totally fine with the normal Q8 e-tron, definitely. If you want that extra spice of driving fun and the budget is not really, you know, that important, then the SQ8 will be totally fine. One more topic then here in driving is Sportback versus SUV. Yes, this happens to be the Sportback version here now, but yeah, it's a design thing, you know. It maybe has like a minimum effect then on the weight distribution, because here then it's a little bit lower, but it doesn't make a huge difference. The bigger difference will in a way be that when you go for the Sportback version, the drag coefficient is better actually, so you will have a little bit more efficiency then. Yeah, but also not in a way that it's a super game changer or something. So if you go for SUV or Sportback in driving, it doesn't really make a big difference. So rather pick that one that you like better design or styling wise. Now the question is, what about the final consumption for both vehicles and the real-world range? And now to our final consumption and real-world range test for today. So we have driven the 106 kWh battery, the big one, with the Q8 e-tron 55 and also with the SQ8 Sportback e-tron. The first consumption with the normal Q8 e-tron was about 24 kWh on 100 kilometers. Here with the SQ8 e-tron a little bit higher, 25 kWh on 100 kilometers. That means both round about 2.5 miles per kilowatt-hour for our US guys. So the real world range then is 440 kilometers for the Q8 e-tron or 420 kilometers for the SQ8 e-tron. That means 270 miles for the Q8 e-tron or around 260 miles for the SQ8 e-tron. Overall, an acceptable result. The consumption is still quite high, also if you compare it to the competition. However, now, since the battery is so large, it evens that one out. So no, it is not the most efficient one in the segment, but it is the one that also offers one of the best driving experiences in the segment as for comfort and fun and this combination indeed. So you have to think about which one would be more important to you, and you can directly compare the competitors like the Tesla Model X or the BMW iX.